and welcome to the annual meeting of the William and Mary Alumni Association. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Carla Moreland, a member of the class of 1981, a 1984 law school graduate, and parent of a 2017 law school graduate. I currently serve as the president of the Alumni Association. I will be joined today, today's presentation by Marilyn Midget, class of 1975, the CEO of the Alumni Association, and by George Cruiser, class of 1984, the treasurer and chair of the Finance and Investment Committee. I also extend a warm welcome on behalf of the board of directors. Most years I would ask them to stand, but in this morning's virtual presentation, I will introduce them through this slide. These are the hardworking members of your Alumni Association board. Throughout the quarantine, we have all become a lot more Zoom literate, and today we'll exercise that training once again. We are in a webinar format for this morning's meeting, and the ability to have real-time exchange is limited from what we normally enjoy. However, we are set up to entertain your questions and comments. Throughout this webinar, to pose a question, please use the Q&A button along the bottom of your screen. This will allow you to ask a question, and we'll close the session by answering those. Depending on the question, you may receive an immediate response by one of our staff members, and we will follow up with you if necessary. Now on with the show. A quick refresh on the background of the William and Mary Alumni Association. We were founded on July 4th, 1842, and incorporated in 1923. We are the 8th oldest alumni organization. All alumni are members of the association, and we currently have over 100,000 living alumni. The William and Mary Alumni Association is a non-dues paying organization, and we're structured as an independent 501c3. We have a 24-member governing board, plus in alternate years, the immediate past president serves on the governing board. And in June 2014, we entered into an MOU between the William and Mary Alumni Association and the university. This MOU redefined the relationship between the university and the Alumni Association in terms of resources, staffing, and responsibilities. As a refresher, I think it's always good to ground ourselves in the purpose and mission of the Alumni Association. Our purpose is to provide value-added products, services, and programs to our alumni and friends that create a lifelong connection and loyalty to William and Mary through support ensuring alma mater sustainability. And our specific mission statement is shown here. Essentially, whatever we undertake must be good for both alumni and the university. We would be remiss if we didn't fully acknowledge the great achievement of our university in the completion of the For the Bold campaign and the important role of our alumni. As you're aware, the university completed its first billion-dollar campaign, exceeding that goal, also becoming the #1 public university in the nation in terms of donor participation rates. And driving all of that was the Alumni Association's ability to strengthen engagement with our alumni. I draw your attention to the lower right of this screen. Engagement is the engine that drives philanthropy, and the Alumni Association is proud to have accomplished a record increase in engagement, programming, and participation throughout the campaign. While the numbers and dollars are certainly great achievements for William and Mary, another point of pride for us all is the recognition of the prominence that we as alumni play in the life of our alma mater, as reflected by the expansion of the beautiful Alumni House. Please take a look.
Thank you, Carla. And we cannot wait to welcome everyone to our newly expanded home on campus when we're finally able to gather again in person. Let me add my own personal warm welcome from a not so warm Williamsburg, where we've had freezing rain and power outages already this morning. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that all of us will be able to maintain our Wi-Fi. I think if we've learned nothing else during COVID, it's that flexibility, adaptability, and a strong sense of humor is key, right? So let's begin our review of the year, and what a year it's been. We're actually going to follow our accomplishments along within the framework of our strategic priorities as developed by the Board of Directors during Charter Day weekend last February. Now, these priorities were key in guiding the board's focus as well as the staff's work for the year, and they include, number one, to create opportunities to engage alumni with each other in alma mater, to promote an inclusive culture of alumni engagement and philanthropy, to sustain and grow a diversified and stable financial model, and fourthly, to implement best practices for board recruiting and leadership. So with these strategic priorities in mind, let me share with you a few of the highlights which speak directly to how we've executed those during the past year. Our first strategic priority was to create opportunities for alumni to engage with each other and with the university. And we did this primarily through creating programming with the help of amazing alumni volunteers, and certainly with the collaborative efforts of staff working through our regional, our affinity, and our identity networks. And so here are some examples of the programs we've developed and distributed throughout the year on an entirely digital platform. And that virtual engagement programming was developed for a very geographically dispersed and a much more demographically diverse alumni body. And to expand our programming for resources for our career management and professional networking. We also wanted to assess growth opportunities to broaden engagement with our military and veteran alumni as well, and also to look very closely at how we could improve and grow our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So these are just a few highlights of our programs this fiscal year, which began on July 1 through December. And we had a terrific webinar series on leadership that featured Michael Powell, class of 1985, who's a former FCC commissioner and the current president of the National Cable of Telecommunications Association. He paired up with Mike Petters, who's a graduate of the Mason School of Business from the class of 1993, who's also the current sitting CEO of Huntington Ingalls Industries. And they were joined by Jill Ellis, class of 1988, who we all know as the former U.S. women's soccer team coach, having led her teams in winning 2 back-to-back World Cup championships. And I understand that just about 2 weeks ago, she joined the Sacramento's National Women's Soccer League team. Our folks also collaborated with faculty members across campus in arts and sciences to create a Food for Thought series, and our annual Washington, D.C. Embassy event, which is always an annual favorite. This time, it didn't disappoint this year either, and it had a focus on the future of U.S. diplomacy, where we had over 250 folks enjoying the perspectives of 3 former ambassadors. And then related to our programming for our military and veteran alumni, we hosted virtual tours of both the U.S. Army and Harper's Ferry. With the roller coaster ride this year, you might think that our participation would be down, but actually quite opposite was true. And since the beginning of the fiscal year, we've experienced a 17% increase in the number of events year to date, with a 67% increase in registrations and a 41% increase in the ethnic diversity of our participants. The lack of travel and geographic restrictions actually allowed us to include many geographically dispersed volunteers and panelists who were able to join us from the comforts of their own home, and who otherwise, of course, wouldn't have been able to join us if we were in person. And so it also provided us the ability to record many of our programs for future viewing, because of course not all alumni are available when we actually deliver them in person via virtual engagement. And they're able to view those at any time that works best for their schedule. So the flexibility of this particular venue actually provides us the ability to attract a much wider variety of subject matter experts in a number of fields, which in turn has allowed us to enhance our offerings. Now, I mentioned in an earlier slide that one of our priorities is also for programming in career management and professional services. And last year we held Professionals Week right around the same time. And since we hosted our last annual meeting, we've got another Professionals Week coming up in about 10 days. But last year we included 33 events that were held over 5 days across the country with the help of about 58 alumni volunteer hosts, organizers, and speakers. And we had more than 1,200 participating. So as I said, we're going to be doing that again this year in about 10 days, week after next. And this year, though, we've chosen to create themes for each of the days during the week that we really think are particularly relevant and appropriate in today's environment. And I'm going to encourage you to jot this website down if you're not already familiar with it. It's wmalumni.com, where you can access information for everything that we do. And there under the Career and Networking tab, you can find out more details about the specific programs during the week and actually sign up or even volunteer to assist in the effort, because we're always looking for more volunteers. In June, we hosted our virtual alumni admissions weekend for prospective legacy students and their parents. And this particular program is offered as a service to all of our alumni parents, along with their students, where they're actually considering William and Mary or not. And what we're trying to accomplish is to help demystify the application process, as well as, take the general angst out of the overall college search process. And again, although we weren't able to gather together in person, we still had over 370 attendees, which was an all-time record for us. And the participants were able to hear from our Dean of Admission and Enrollment Management, who's Tim Wolf, you see here on the left. And we also had a number of panels that spoke about the Common App, the college admission essay, financial aid, how to make the most of an on-campus visit when you're able to do so, and a myriad of other subjects. Then came the fall, and we hosted Homecoming and Reunions Weekend, which comprised, I think it was some 55 events that we spread over 12 days and had over 2,200 in attendance. And many of those folks actually participated in a number of different events. Some of the highlights you see here in the pictures included the annual sunset ceremony, which also attracted an all-time record of more than 1,000, which is again because people could join us from all over the world. And we also hosted our alumni induction and pinning ceremony for the class of 2020, who wasn't able to graduate in person this past spring in May. And as we always do during homecoming, we hosted Zoom unions for all of the reunion classes whose graduation years ended in 0s and 5s. Now, another adaptation to the laptop world were our award ceremonies, and we hosted this year's Alumni Service, Staff Service, and Coach of the Year Awards, where you see the recipients here opening their tribe trunks with their awards and party gear, which we enclosed to help add to the celebration. The individuals that you see are Ben Boone, Jim and Ronnie Taylor, and Molly Lehner Wolf, who received the Alumni Service Award for their longtime dedication and devotion to alma mater as extraordinary alumni volunteers who've been dedicated in their service for years and years and years. You also see a shot here of Associate Provost Anne Marie Stock, and she's been a wonderful friend to and a supporter of the Alumni Association, having led a number of Alumni Journey programs for us, and she received the Alumni Staff Service Award. And certainly last but not least, in that bottom right-hand photo, you see Dane Fisher, our men's basketball coach, who received the Coach of the Year Award. And Dane was actually also named the CAA Conference Coach of the Year. And his kids are clearly having a great time opening his box and looking at all of his goodies. And then we have the Alumni Medallion. Hard to believe it's been 1 year ago during Charter Day weekend that we hosted our last in-person event. But the Alumni Medallion is our pièce de résistance, and it's the highest award an alumnus can receive. And our 2021 recipients include Bob Trice, Sue Warner, Sharon Philpott, and B. McLeod, and they're going to actually be receiving their awards today, beginning at 12:30 immediately following the conclusion of this meeting. And I really do hope that you all will be able to join us. And if you haven't registered yet to receive the video link, don't worry about it. You can find it on our homepage, also at wmalumni.com. This particular award is the highest and most prestigious award that the Alumni Association gives, and it recognizes outstanding alumni for their dedication, commitment, advocacy, and support of William and Mary, along with exemplary accomplishments in their professional lives and leadership and civic engagement in their communities, their states, or their nations. And so again, I really encourage you and invite you to join us at 12:30 today. Now, our second strategic priority is to promote an inclusive culture of engagement and philanthropy. And so let's take a look at the work that we've done in our efforts towards that goal. In 2019, we launched our William and Mary Inclusion Leadership Circles with the primary goal of deepening our engagement, volunteer leadership, and philanthropy of alumni through the identity lenses of race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation. And our leadership circles are comprised of diverse alumni that have really dedicated themselves to the forward progress of our underrepresented alumni communities. And they meet with President Rowe and Dr. Sean Glover, who is our Chief Diversity Officer, quarterly. And we're really, really pleased to have recently received a silver award from CASE for our engagement efforts in support of targeted constituent groups. And for those of you who are not familiar with CASE, CASE actually stands for the Council for Advancement and Support of Education. And it's an industry think tank within colleges, universities, and educators across the nation. And they focus on supporting alumni relations, communications, development, marketing, and advancement services. So it's really a feather in our cap for William and Mary to have received such recognition and prestigious awards. And we've actually received a number of those, but I'm just highlighting one here. Now, in support of our Society of 1918, which was founded in honor of the 100th anniversary of the admission of women at W&M, which today actually numbers 489 members, and they've collectively raised $4.3 million to support alumni engagement initiatives. We've hosted more than a dozen virtual events this year, and some of those have included a series on women's leadership during crisis. We've also had a series on STEAM, which, you know, most people are familiar with STEM, science, technology, and engineering and math, but we've added the A, which is arts. And we'll be hosting a series of women's health this semester as well. But this particular program, both the alumni initiatives and the society, have also received a lot of the national attention, and we're really proud of that. And the staff gets a big round of applause for all of the calls that they receive from other universities in the nation, asking them how we initiated that, created that, what kind of research we did, and how we've been able to be so successful. And finally, expanding our programming through the identity of lens. We're partnering with faculty and staff across campus to celebrate the centennial of our Asian Pacific Islander and Middle Eastern alumni. You might be interested to know that our first APIM student arrived on campus 100 years ago in 1921. And we've also hosted programs through our Huron Willis Association, also known as HWA, representing our Black alumni. And our Latinx alumni also gathered, as did HWA, during homecoming for a virtual celebration. Last but not least is our LGBTQ group, which was formerly known as GALA, and they've recently rebranded themselves as the Creme Del Association, and they're in the process of establishing priorities, leadership, and programming in support of their identity group. So now it's my pleasure to turn the podium on and over, so to speak, to George Cruiser, who is the Alumni Association's treasurer and the chair of our Finance and Investment Committee. And he's going to talk about our third strategic priority. George?
Thank you, Marilyn, and welcome everyone. I chair the committee, Finance and Investment, and we have primary responsibility for strategic priority number 3, which is creating a strong, diversified financial model. So in addition to the oversight of the financial statements, the audit, and the 990 preparation, we spend the bulk of our time looking for realistic opportunities to enhance earned income with the primary mission to support our programming. Really, our reason for being is to make sure that we can have vibrant programming. We are in the process of reviewing ideas of ways to increase fundraising to our newly renamed William & Mary Alumni Association Fund. And we're exploring the various ways, once we can actually get together, to utilize our beautiful new home as both a home base for alumni and as a source of revenue to support our ongoing programming. So now I'll move on to the exciting stuff and show the financial position. First, let me say that all of this is available online. So even though it looks like an eye chart to you right now, if you do want to pore over the numbers, you can do that at your leisure, because all this information is available online. I want to highlight a couple of things. The total Alumni Association funds that are $10 million, just a little over $10 million at the end of June 30, 2020. And we have endowments held by others totaling $4.9 million, giving the overall asset base of the Alumni Association at $15 million. And that's our financial statement for the period ending 6/30/2020. We've been fortunate enough to be able to grow those investments in the latter 6 months of the year from 7.6 million that's in an investment account to 9.2 million. So while 2020 has created quite a bit of chaos for us in many modes of our lives, economically, our financial position is strong and really has strengthened during the course of 2020. Now, if we look at our sources of income and expense, and again, this slide represents the year ending June 30, 2020. So much of our virtual programming has happened since, we have a little bit of it because it started in March, April, May, and June, but the bulk of what Marilyn talked about isn't really reflected in this slide because we've had very robust programming in the second half of the year. But from a sources of income perspective, we have event receipts, we have fundraising, we have a box called OUA support. That's the Office of University Advancement Support. And I know there was a question on what was the memorandum of understanding, and really in that memorandum of understanding, the university shares with us the responsibility of alumni engagement, and they provide funding in initiatives related to alumni career networking, alumni programming, admission support for alumni families, and holistic support of our volunteer management framework. So an important source of our funding in being able to deliver the programming that we deliver. And then on the expense side, the lion's share of what we spend our funds on are events, with smaller amounts for awards and recognition, for the regional and the affiliate groups, and for general business activities. So then finally, my last slide is really a benchmark on how we perform as a nonprofit when you compare us to nonprofits at large. And really what the expectation is that a nonprofit would spend the lion's share of its funds providing the programming that is established in the mission of the association. And in the year ending June 30, 2020, we provided 81% of our expenditure was in program services, which from a benchmark perspective puts us in the ideal range of associations being between 70 and 90% in that category. We are, in terms of administration, we're right on the cusp between meeting the standard and excellent at 15%, because anything less than 15% is considered excellent. And we are excellent in the area of fundraising, where anything less than 10% of your expenditures going toward fundraising is considered excellent. So we really have worked very hard to perform well and be an ideal organization. So I will now pass off the presentation for strategic priority number 4.
Thanks, George. Our fourth strategic goal was to focus on board development, ensuring a representative board across a wide range of demographics. We've devoted a lot of time towards development of a sustainable pipeline of potential volunteers for the future. Hopefully, you have all seen the ballot for this year's nominees. They represent a wide range of talent and expertise to bring to the board, and they all bring their enthusiasm and love of William & Mary to the table. Please take the time to read their biographies and vote via the email link that was sent to you, or you can go online at wmalumni.com/vote. The ballot closes at midnight on March 11th. While it's good to take a look back at what we've accomplished this past year, given the conditions and how much uncertainty ahead still for all of us, I'll ask Marilyn to address what's ahead, what we've learned, and some of the challenges and opportunities facing us. And then we can circle back to questions before the conclusion of the meeting this morning.
Thanks, Carla. I think, as everybody in our audience knows from personal experience, the pandemic has brought us a number of paradigm shifts. And while we can all quickly, I'm sure at the speed of light, enumerate all of the bad things that COVID has brought, there's actually also been some unanticipated benefits that I think will ground us as we move forward. So firstly, the pandemic has brought us, I think, all a heightened spirit of innovation within the Alumni Engagement Office. We've known that we've had to make a major shift in all of our work, how we approach it, how we create it, how we measure it, and how we deliver it. It's certainly brought a greater sense of urgency to create these online engagement opportunities using digital platforms. And the reality is it's something that we have wanted to do for a long time and just simply never had the time to keep the engine running and to try to carve out time to do as many new and different things as we would have liked. But the time that we save from not hosting in-person events has actually given us the opportunity as well as the creative space to imagine these new programs and platforms, to plan them and to execute them. The pandemic has also eliminated that comfort zone mentality of, well, that's the way we've always done it, because the reality is that's simply not an option anymore. And, you know, it provided us the opportunity to try new things without what I would call the typical fear of failure concerns. And it forced more collaboration and awareness of, you know, we're all in this together and we need each other now more than ever, has been the reality in every walk of life and certainly in our daily work. So as we sit here today, what are our greatest challenges? Uncertainty around COVID aftershocks. How long is it going to take us to get vaccinations, to reach herd immunity? How long is it going to take us to host traditional in-person events? And what does a new normal look like? And when will we know that it's actually arrived? Surviving the revenue hit. The impact on budgets and resources, both short-term and long-term, have been significant. And our earned income streams have taken a significant hit, and the loss of income from alumni house rentals and event receipts has been enormous. Staff and alumni fatigue, the mental and emotional toll on our alumni engagement staff and of all of you, our alumni as citizens, is really very, very palpable. The resources in managing human capital has taken center stage again now more than ever. And with the increased importance of real-time communications and digital platforms and videography, and because the marketing and communications departments that are responsible for those functions are being called upon to do more by virtually every department across campus, has resulted in alumni engagement priorities taking a place farther back in line. We also know that students on campus experience has a direct influence on developing them as engaged alumni. And so how is the pandemic experience as a student going to affect their future engagement as alumni? But like so many things, our greatest challenges are also our greatest opportunities. And the focus on virtual engagement offers us the opportunity to capitalize on what we've learned and to develop hybrid models of engagement, because it's not an either or. It's not either an in-person event or a virtual event. It's now both and, so that we can reach even more alumni in a myriad of ways. But the challenges moving forward will be, how do we resource and fund these different models, because we simply don't have enough people, time, and money to do both. Virtual engagement is location agnostic, and because our programs are now based on personal interest, consumption is not limited to where you live, which also drives the demand for customized targeted communication, which also requires increased human capital and resources. We've also got to ask ourselves the question, how do we define our role in work in the context of the racial reckoning occurring around the world today? How do we attract more diverse participation in our programming? And how do we get to know all of our alumni populations well enough so that we can create program that everyone sees themselves in, regardless of identity, background, experience, or perspective? The power of alumni community can be shown during crisis, and it has been. And so the pandemic offers us a unique opportunity to provide high value added programs that produce positive outcomes for alumni as individuals, for the university, and for society at large. And finally, in closing, I would just like to say thank you to our board of directors and thank you to our tremendous staff who get up every single day thinking about how they can excite and delight our alumni, because you all deserve it. So with that, let me hand the mic back to Madam President to close us out and get us across the finish line. Thanks again.
Thanks, Marilyn, and huge thank you to you and your staff. They really have been day in, day out phenomenal, and are the same thing to the board members. to all the alums listening today. You have a group of folks who truly have gone above and beyond, creating new ways of engaging that a lot of us didn't maybe even imagine possible a year ago. So with that, that concludes the formal presentation. I've been trying to keep an eye on the questions posed, and I'll ask at this point if there are any remaining questions in the queue. And I don't believe so. Please.
No.
Oh, John, sorry.
No, I was just saying there are no open
Okay.
questions in the
Thank
queue.
you. So, and at any point, you may always reach out through the website with any questions that you have. We thank you for your attention and attendance and please either use the link you received through your email or do so at wmalumni.com. There will also be 2 reminder emails coming out to prompt your vote. And please join us for the virtual alumni medallion ceremony today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find information on our website at wmalumni.com. Hearing no further business, the annual meeting of the Alumni Association is adjourned. Thank you.